Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Record Breakers. I'm Petey Rave, your man with no plan. Here with me, as always, is my crew, all together again, nobody missing this week. We have none other than Patrick.
Hi, guys.
We've got Brett.
I'm back, y'all.
And we've got Drew.
I have a voice.
Yay! We are gathered once again to talk about music. And the provider of said music is me. We're going to talk about an interesting album, Drink. We're going to talk about the Prodigy Presents Dirtchamber Sessions Volume 1. So it goes that Liam Howlett was on a radio show called The Breeze Block. And it's one of them, a DJ comes on or a person comes on and they do a mix. He did a mix, people liked it, people kept bootlegging it, and he said, well, I don't want people bootlegging it, how about people buy it? And he made a thing, and it's called the Dirtchamber Sessions Volume 1, kind of an extended version of it. Let's talk about it. What expectations did you have, Patrick, about this album coming into it?
So I actually listened to the Prodigy. The Fat of the Land is one of the great electronic records of its era. I will say that much. But I have not listened to this because I've listened to like their more traditional studio albums. Really specifically their last two, which was Fat of the Land and Invaders Must Die. And I guess they have a new one out, so I'll have that to listen to after this. So I kind of had an idea what I was getting into in terms of the style. But this was more of a DJ mixed record, which is not really what the Prodigy do on their album, so it was a little bit new to me.
Yeah. Brett, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I was expecting a dude with two mohawks, but not down the middle, and maybe like videos with like bugs and stuff. They're pretty big on putting bugs in their videos, the music of the era of, the block rockin' beats and stuff. I know that wasn't them, but of that era. I didn't get that. I got a DJ doing a really, ridiculously long mixed track.
Yes. But, we'll talk. True. What expectations did you have coming into this album?
Well, I started listening to it blind. And when I went in, I thought to myself, oh, this is Prodigy. I've heard Prodigy before, back in the 90s, because you kind of couldn't get away from Prodigy at a certain point in the 90s. They were just kind of out there. So I was expecting a lot more of that sort of sound. And that's what I went into it thinking. And then I noticed that something was off, something was different. And that's when I looked it up and saw it was just Liam.
Yeah.
So my expectations changed. And I was like, oh, okay, if he's out on his own, he's going to experiment a little bit. And that's sort of where I was going as I listened more and more.
Like, man, this guy sounds a whole lot like Johnny Rotten. Wow, that was a really good impression.
That's really weird.
Could I just use James' diction?
Yes. So there's about 48 different songs in this entire. So you want to talk about themes and elements? There's about 48 different songs that all just got mixed and smashed in there all together, and it is like I said, one long mix, just kind of flowing from song and song portion to the next. Different styles of music, old school hip hop, a lot of that, samples from some little bit of classic rock, a little bit of old school hip hop, a little bit, an occasional Prodigy sample, an occasional alternative sample. It's a Liam Howlett and his records just spinning, scratching, and cutting. Patrick, what themes and elements caught your attention about this album?
So what I realized, so when I think of the Prodigy, they kind of took sort of the music stylings of early to mid 90s rave music and added onto it sort of this rock and roll performance thing, having, live singers and a crazy stage show. And I think they had a guitar player and a bunch of musicians and stuff involved. So what you find here is a lot of that sort of blending of sort of dance-centric rave music along with a lot of old school hip-hop. Like, that was sort of the thing that jumped out to me, is like, I have not listened to this much Cool Keith, I think, ever. But he's all over this. And, you know, Grandmaster Flash and, like, the stuff you would expect if when you say old school hip hop, I mean old. And it's kind of good because of it. And obviously they mixed in a little Prodigy. I definitely heard the original samples that ultimately the Ultramagnetic song, Give the Drummer Some, that became the inevitably controversial Smack My Bitch Up, which is not controversial and people suck. But it's sort of the roots of the Prodigy, what they are, but in DJ form.
Mm-hmm. Brett, what would be the themes and elements that caught your attention?
The major theme, I guess you could say, is variety. There's a whole wide, like, pretty much anything pre-1999 was fair game to be thrown into this mix. You know, there were some really good selections of some mighty deep cuts that warmed my heart. The smoothness and the purposeful non-smoothness that is kind of fun. Like, if you've ever gone and saw like a head-to-head DJ like competition, is kind of fun. Like the way that you could still, it felt very, very analog, even though it wasn't. But you can actually think of somebody actually doing this in front of you. There wasn't any like amazing, you know, magic going on. It was just really, really good knowledge of the music that was used in samples. You know, they let things linger for long enough to let you be like, oh, well, okay, so I get this, which I'll talk to when we go to the next section. But
yes. Yes. And Drew, what would be the themes and elements that caught your attention?
Well, as I was listening and I did my research, I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to get this guy messing with a lot of samples, doing the mix thing that was originally for the BBC, as we've discussed earlier. I was like, okay, cool. And at times, I kept forgetting, like, as transitions would happen, I was like, oh, yeah, no, there's like 48 songs here, and each section's gonna have a lot of twists and turns that I've gotta sort of pay attention to, which was a cool, sort of observational, like, task for me as the reviewer, is, like, trying to keep up with the whole thing, which was fun. It was actually a fun thing for me as a person. Like, I don't know, stuff like that, thinking on your feet, I have a fun time with. So that was a good sign. It all fit pretty well together. How I got it was there was different sections, and then to me each section had like the central theme that would push it through, but there was definitely like separate parts, so the sections would act almost like acts of a play, and that to me was really, really cool how that worked out. It's something that I definitely wouldn't have sought after, but it was something that was really neat to hear. It was fun, and it was something that I felt, knowing the Prodigy background, it's something that could work on a dance floor at like just a weird rave or whatever. Although I think that leaving it as like an underground bootleg sort of thing,
yeah,
while he missed out on the money, I think that would have kind of been cool, because it would have been kind of this like underground thing that people didn't know about. But,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but yeah, gotta cash in.
I don't blame him for being the guy that says, hey, no, I want to make some money now. That would be great. Like, I don't blame him.
But yeah, it was, you know, you get a lot of cool things like mixing and using certain elements of a song and then carrying them over into other parts and accompanying other songs and stuff like that. And it's hard to, yeah, and this is the segment where we kind of like key tracks. I don't know, the part with the Jane's Addiction song and the part with the KRS-One where he says, I got more rhymes than Madonna gets dick. The part with, you know, Cool Keith and stuff. No.
That time they just kind of played the Sex Pistols for 2 minutes.
Yeah, the kind of, you know, which I honestly I skip sometimes. I'm just gonna be honest. I just kind of like fine.
I am in the Sex Pistols suck club.
Yeah, so. I just kind of skip that sometimes. I can tolerate it when I'm just.
I have never heard somebody like make the unmistakable sound of the Sex Pistols transition to Fatboy Slim.
Yes.
Like I heard on there.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people doing it.
Yeah. But yeah, and there's a lot of like fun moments, and then like, you know, using the Jane's Addiction, I'm gonna assume, and I could be wrong, but using the bass line and then carrying it over, just playing Jane's Addiction's been concealing, and then just taking that bass line and just here, I'm gonna borrow this bass line, and then just play with it with a bunch of other stuff going along, scratching back and forth with Rocket by Herbie Hancock. Just like you hear the Herbie Hancock, and then you hear the scratching by him, and it goes back to the Herbie Hancock scratch, and that was cool. There's a lot of cool moments. Let's talk about moments. Patrick, what were some of your favorite moments of this like album, this mix?
So I mentioned it. So Smack My Bitch Up is a great song, and I still remember from like childhood how angry people were about a song called Smack My Bitch Up, and never referencing the original song by a group called the Ultramagnetic MCs, who they were just sampling. It was taken slightly out of context, but somebody said, change my pitch up, smack my bitch up in a song, and no one cared then, but then when, you know, it's happening in the 90s on MTV, it's suddenly a big problem. And there's also side thing. There's a really good video floating about the internet where someone builds Smack My Bitch Up from all the original samples, and it's worth watching. Go find it. It's somewhere out there. It's like 25 minutes long, and it's worth it just for to see how a song like that gets created. Mm-hmm. I kind of like, so I like Girl Talk, who takes what this is, which is the notion of cramming different songs together and making it cohesive, to its logical conclusion, where he's taking literally 4 or 5 second bits of a song and layering them on top with 50 other bits. This is sort of, I'm guessing stuff like this is what influenced that to occur, the whole mashup scene. And there's a little bit of that going on here, where you'll have, as one track turns into the next, you'll have some crossover. You'll carry through part of a track, and it kind of works. There's Public Enemy on here. I love PE. They're great. There's a lot of Public Enemy actually mixed in.
Yeah.
But it's hard to like pick a section out, but it's a thing. Like, I was cooking today. I made, bolognese because reasons. So I had like 2 hours to kill. I just put this album, I played it through, then I went back up, hit start, and let it play through again. And that's the sort of album it is. It's intended to be listened to start to end,
Soup
all
to
the way
nuts.
through.
Yeah.
Soup to nuts, whatever colloquialism we want to use. But it's fun.
Yeah. Brett, can you pick out moments or tracks off of this album?
Well, in the section number 3,
Yes.
there was a good 3 minutes of a fun little track called "The Mexican" by Babe Ruth that plays out and plays and plays and plays for about 3 minutes, and then it transitions beautifully into "Rock the House." It's a little fun moment that is like you sit there and you're starting to get comfortable and you forget exactly what you're listening to, because you're like, on hour 500 of Civ 5 and you're just clicking away listening to this album. And then all of a sudden it like completely changes on you and flips around. But the whole section 6 is just like a love letter to a bunch of different points in time in hip hop that from a couple of points from the "And the Chicken Tastes Like Wood" era that made me smile, and like all of the lost periods of yesteryear that seem very, very alien today. But other than that, yeah, they played a lot of the Sex Pistols, and like I read that like just part of the original had some Beatles stuff in it, and I would be kind of interested in hearing that. But there's a lot of stuff. This is a very dense album. There's like 8 million people whose voices you can hear on it.
Yeah,
sometimes twice.
Yes, sometimes twice, including about Beastie Boys. And in different, in different pitches.
Yes.
Different pitches.
Change the pitch up sometimes.
Yeah. Drew, what would be some of the the moments or tracks for you?
Let's see what you did there, Spider. So like, as I said, I sort of, when I was breaking it down, like in my head and sort of writing notes and stuff like that, I took it by the sections and I really tried to hone in on like what each section was and what each section I liked about it. To me, section 8, I'm going to do the backwards of what we usually do. I'm going to start from the bottom, and then we're going to be there.
Yes.
The scratching and cutting between the samples, especially at the very beginning of it, like felt like just a really old school sort of DJ like trick to me. It was very, very fast between the different samples, which was cool, and the jumping around sort of reminded you of everything that came before it on the record. And I thought that was a cool way to like sort of start the fade out of what was happening was, oh, hey, guess what? Like, we played around a lot with like these samples and we played around a lot with like what was going on. So check out what's like going to happen as we fade into the distance. In the third section, the part that started out with the band Babe Ruth, not the Slugger, the band, was great because that in section 5, the part that started with the Sex Pistols, both of those parts I liked because what I liked about them was they started with a very much a bare bones sort of song and then let that build into the rest of the samples, and I thought that was really, really cool. Section 5 took it a weird direction where he just sort of let the Sex Pistols play for that song, which was kind of weird, but like taking that like sort of bare bonesness and then switching it up was really cool, and like building on that and like letting people who might not be taking this apart piece by piece sort of see what those who took the time to take it apart piece by piece were seeing, which was the build at the beginning, like being a part of something in the whole section, sort of playing into each other and playing around each other. But to me, the Sex Pistols part in section 5 was especially fun because to me, it was probably in my mind the largest like tonal shift in the entire record. Yeah. And it was handled really, really well to the point where in my mind, and one of my listens through, I was thinking, okay, so if this is what the DJ is doing in a sort of like rave, like club setting, does it make sense to me as a person sitting in the middle of that? And like, can I, like, would you be able to like keep dancing, keep moving, keep grooving without missing a beat? And even with the giant tonal shift, I don't think that part ever misses a beat, which I think goes to his skill as a DJ, which I think was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, some interesting moments right there. And we can go back around the horn to get final conclusions. Brett, what would be your conclusions about the album overall?
If you need an album to listen to and have it in the background and have it be something that is going to have an eclectic mix of all sorts of things while you're, micromanaging your workers in Civ 5, I'd give that a thumbs up. If you just need something to sort of set on a loop and, you don't really have to worry about the nuance because it's cut from pretty popular and pretty well-made pieces of music to begin with. So, like, it's going to have skill there, and you can just, like, sort of soak in the music. It fits that very well. Listen to it. I mean, if you haven't listened to it yet, you're not going to really get any of what we're saying, but go and listen to it. Even Squiggles out there, I think, will enjoy some of this.
Yeah. At least the Mexican.
Million years.
At least the Mexican. Maybe. Patrick, what would be your conclusions about the album overall?
I really ended up enjoying this a lot, but like I said, I like the Prodigy. I'm trying in my head to debate whether this was done on tables or on CD DJs, because it's right in that era where the digital tables were just coming into their own. And just
I'm going to say it was done on tables. It's just
I'm guessing it was tables just because Howlett's been around long enough that's how he learned.
You could hear some weird, like, some stuff. At least a couple of instances.
You probably played around. You probably used whatever tools, but I think starting with that.
But it's I think it's a really good, like, like Brett said, just sort of an album to just if you got whatever it is 50 minutes of your life and you need something to listen to, it's there. It's nice for it. It's definitely going to be probably in my mix of how to get through 8 hours at work without putting my head in a vice kind of soundtrack. So it's fun. It's really good. I'm also really excited that the Prodigy finally have a new album out. So probably go listen to that too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Drew, what would be your conclusion about the album overall?
Again, the Prodigy was never really my thing. All right, so like I went into this sort of scared, but to listen to it, it was actually really kind of neat. To hear sort of what was being used and how it was being used and like the layering, and to me that's the thing. Even if it's, to me, I like the things that like I find and that you guys bring me on this show that like I can go in and be like, oh my god, this is like one of my new favorite things. Like I love this record or whatever, and like that's a cool experience. But then going in and listening to something that like isn't my thing, and then I get a whole new appreciation for because like I know I have to talk about it for half an hour with you guys. Like that to me is something that's also cool about this show. And it's something that I think broadens a lot of people's horizons in music. Is like, even if it's not your thing, like give it a critical chance and see if you don't come out with a different opinion, because this was a cool album. It was something that was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I think overall it's just a really cool, like, interesting novel experiment, and it's interesting, kind of like just. God, I'm making people drink left and right with that drinking game. Hashtag interesting. It is a fascinating album, a fascinating mix, and a fascinating collection of tunes and sounds. And I remember kind of like how I discovered this was, probably should have done this in the introduction, but I'll tell you how I discovered this. I was looking for just like random mixes, or just like I want an hour of like somebody mixing some stuff, and I would like go on to programs where you download peer-to-peer and stuff like that, and I would download those like from like whether it was like one of those being on the Breeze block of the Jungle Brothers. I would like I had a mix from them, and I had a mix from here and there. It's probably where I found out about Frisky Radio, and that part of that was discovering this, and it was just like, oh, this is a really cool mix of music. Like this is an actual album. It's like and I was just intrigued, to say the least, and it just ended up being a really cool experience, and it's just an album that I can always just like jam out to and just play in the background or sit down and listen to, and it's just a really cool record. But yeah, go listen to it. Go play Record Breakers, the home game. But before you do that, we're gonna do our main event. We're gonna get to the core of the show. The only thing that matters in this podcast. The haiku reviews. We have our haikus. We got our 575s up in this piece. Let's see who starts. Brett, what is your haiku?
A touch of old school. Beats from 20 years ago. Extremely 90s.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, what is your haiku?
A pleasant detour into the roots of remix. Good times had by all.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what is your haiku?
A name I don't like, but I can dig the effort. Nicely mashed up.
Mm-hmm. And of course I have my haiku. A man, his tables, and his record collection makes really cool shit. And that's it for our thoughts on Prodigy Presents the Dirtchamber Sessions Volume 1. You can find this album on our Spotify playlist, where we curate all the albums. We put them out there so you can play Record Breakers, the home game. And on that playlist will be next week's album, provided by none other than Patrick. Patrick, what do you got for us next week?
Next week I am bringing out the 80s synth pop with Depeche Mode's Violator.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating discussion coming for us all next week. But that's it. You can find us all over the internet. Patrick is at the Swagger. Brett is at Hibbity-Bibbard, HIBBITYBIBBARD. Drew is at X2X. I'm at Petey Rave. The show is at 4 Record Breakers, the number 4 Record Breakers, recordbreakerspodcast.com, recordbreakerspodcast@gmail.com, rebelli.net, youtube.com/rebellitv. For this and other shows, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts. Find us all over the place. Subscribe, like, share. But that's it. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodles. So,
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
I was hoping that you were going to do a hoku instead of a haiku. And I just learned that Hoku, the singer of the Disney hit Not Another Dumb Blonde, was Don Ho's daughter. My mind is blown.